What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Kings Lane in Brooklyn. We've been here quite a lot this year, actually. And today we are here with Arsis. It's so great to have you guys back. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Visitant is your latest record. Came out this year. How has the making of it and everything been with it?
Oh, man. Well, it hasn't actually been released quite yet. It'll be November 2nd is
Okay.
the street date on the record. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to get together. We did like an insane amount of pre-production. A lot of us ended up tracking a fair amount of the album like at our respective home studios. So it was kind of relaxed. It wasn't like a super stressful experience necessarily. And mixing of it went very smooth. Mark Lewis knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. Really cool.
That guy's the man.
Really cool tones. It sounds pretty natural to me, and especially in comparison to like a lot of the metal records getting produced these days. And I think we're all pretty stoked with it.
Yeah, we took our time, and we were able to, like Jim said, we were able to work at home, get really good performances. So the mixing process for Mark didn't take an awful lot of. It took a lot of work on his part, but it wasn't quite as difficult. He wasn't making a lot of edits. Just letting the tracks speak for themselves, and he was able to do his magic a lot more effortlessly.
Yeah, Mark Lewis seems to be like the mixer where he can add his own mix to it, but he lets like the band speak for himself and doesn't take away the band's sound at all.
Right, and Sean can tell you in the studio, it's take after take after take just to get the right one. It's a lot easier to get the right take. It sounds better to get the right take than just snip everything together. It's a lot more visceral, a lot more genuine.
Yeah, which is awesome. Now, being that it was about 5 years since the release of your previous record, Unwelcome, was the last record, right? Was this record intended to be just like a follow-up to Unwelcome, or do you consider this record to be like a fresh start and stand out in its own entity?
Man, I definitely think it stands on its own. I don't know if that was necessarily like
It wasn't
I thought,
a forefront.
yeah.
It wasn't. It was just something that happened very naturally. It was natural progression, and a lot of those riffs and parts came together over the course of 3-4 years. One of the songs was.
Man, there's like some of the stuff that so there was a bunch of riffs that I had started working on, man, like maybe 7 years ago that Sean and Noah just had like the original files of, and Sean kind of like started arranging them together. They weren't intended to be necessarily like related at all, and it really helped get a jump start on quite a few songs that way. But as far as like the gap being like I don't know, like it wasn't necessarily planned, and honestly, like it really didn't feel like that long of a gap to us because we were really supporting Unwelcome up into like 2016 with some tours. So it really was just like maybe a 2-year like little lull there, where not too much was happening. But Brandon joined the Black Dahlia Murder, and I was working on with Necromancy in the Stone, and Sean and Noah had like their own projects going, and Noah and I both made some major moves during that time. Like I moved to Dallas from Virginia, he moved to Seattle from Virginia, so like all that stuff really takes time out of and focus away from doing a new Arsis record. But I felt like it was like the very like natural time for us to like get a new album together, and I think it came out pretty rad. We're stoked on it.
Yeah, it still took less time than the new Tool album, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you kind of just led me into my next question because, as a lot of people know, Brendan is now also playing with the Black Dahlia Murder, and he just put out a record with them, and you were working on other projects as well. Did maybe you guys working on other projects helped influence the sound of Visitant at all in a way?
Oh, I think for me anyway, with the writing that I did, it for sure like I don't want to say it like influenced the writing directly, but it just having that break to work on other stuff that sounded different than Arsis, I think I was able to bring a lot of that into the writing on this record. And also with over the past couple of years, I started teaching quite a bit. So for the stuff that I was working on, definitely having to break down music on like a fundamental level and like a daily basis helped like I guess over time I had gotten like very lazy about my music theory and even like certain techniques, and just having to teach for a living like definitely helped remind me of a lot of things that I had kind of gotten lazy about over the years. So I mean, I think there was a lot of factors and a lot of influences that went into writing Visitant that definitely made it stand apart. And I think
Our playing has certainly changed over the years.
Yeah.
To build off what you were saying, that break allowed us to kind of readdress our technique, our phrasing. I know that my playing's changed a lot. Lighter touch, is different tone, various things. A different approach to fills, and your vocabulary changes over time, and it's kind of the same thing with music.
Awesome. Now, one thing I was really curious about with you guys is the last time I saw you guys play was with Scar Symmetry, which was
you were at that show of Gramercy, yeah.
Yep, that was one of the best shows of the year for me.
Oh wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, but then you're playing right now with Internal Bleeding and Angel Maker and Pyrexia and Decrepit Birth, even though they're not on the tour anymore. And you've toured with death metal bands, European bands. So do you notice maybe I feel like you guys do have a sound that can appeal to multiple audiences. Do you notice maybe a different reaction though, depending on who you tour with?
Yeah.
Oh, that is for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll certainly cater the set to the crowd. I mean, we try and change things up, as much as we can, and we pick songs in the set that are geared toward a certain audience. Sometimes it's just whatever, these are the songs we like to play. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys were the heaviest band on that Scar Symmetry tour.
I'll totally fly that flag, being the black sheep of a tour.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's Arsis. I don't want to say that we wear many hats, but we do have a lot of influences. We have a lot of influences that are not death metal and not extreme metal. So, and to me, that's always been one thing that made Arsis kind of stand apart. I think is just that it was a take on extreme metal by a bunch of dudes who don't necessarily like extreme metal. So, if that makes any sense, because I know I like a lot of 80s synth pop, and I always have. And Noah's really into Depeche Mode. And Noah's really into power metal, trad metal, but Whitesnake, just really sleazy, slutty music. And we all kind of bring different things to the table for dinner. And the result is
one hell of a Venn diagram.
Oh, it's one hell of a smorgasbord of stuff. So, and I think promoters and booking agents kind of have this idea that well, shit, me and Arsis will fit on this because they have that one song with that one breakdown, and it doesn't always work out, I think, as well as the intentions are behind it. But I do also feel that we win over a lot of fans too. We win people over as well. But yeah, we cater the sets, and we have to try to play up the situation as best as possible. And yes, this for instance, this tour is very it's a very slam heavy tour, and the last tour that we did was a very maybe more tech type of proggy tech type tour. And I think we're still searching for the perfect tour for us, but I do think our music is varied enough that when it falls on the right ears, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that you guys are an extreme metal band, but you weren't starting Arsis being we need to be extreme metal.
No. When I started Arsis, I was really into a lot of traditional metal stuff, Crimson Glory, Queensryche, that sort of stuff. And I had met the original drummer in Arsis who was into more extreme metal, and he had kind of introduced me to the Scandinavian stuff, At the Gates and Dissection. I was just wow, I bet my riffs, if I just made them a little bit faster and threw some of these nasty vocals on it, we'll see what happens. And so I just started doing that, and it definitely was a weird take on extreme metal that wasn't necessarily influenced by extreme metal so much.
Serving up some undercover Dokken riffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Which is cool and I think that's what allows you guys to be on different tours. You could go out with Gojira, you could go out with Obscura, you can go out with internal bleeding. You could play with Cannibal Corpse. It seems like you guys have like that smorgasbord effect where you don't necessarily have to be pigeonholed into a specific genre of metal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one other question I want to have you is, I know you just mentioned you don't live there anymore, but being a band from Virginia, I mean, the home of Lamb of God and Guar, Municipal Waste, Cannabis Corpse. I mean, that place is the East Coast Sweden at this point. But like,
which is so weird because we were just there, and it's a strange thing outside of Richmond. It's weird.
All of these bands, ourselves included, it's just a product of the area. We're all a product of the area. I mean, we were just there. Like, I love Virginia Beach. There wasn't a whole lot, for them to offer us, I guess.
Really?
But
so there's not really much of a scene out there.
It's tough. It's more like Richmond is kind of crusty.
Yeah, I think Richmond's got its thing and always has had its thing, but Virginia Beach is
More of
a bit off the beaten path.
More of a cover band sort of town. Which is fine, a lot of our friends and they play in cover bands that are great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. They're very good at what they do. But then you get up to Richmond, a lot of great bands like Battlemaster. Battlemaster is a great band. Andy Horn, great frontman.
Even like Inner Arma and like Antietam 16 whatever. Yeah, just a lot of really good bands.
Municipal, Iron Reagan,
US Bastards, I believe.
Yeah,
from there
they just played at this venue.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah, those guys are awesome. And then that's one of the guys from Guar, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could never
front
freaking tell because they always wear those masks.
I feel like he's the new guitarist in Guar.
Okay.
Whatever Flatimus Maximus, whatever. Yeah.
But it's cool because a lot of people, because obviously Lamb of God being one of like the biggest metal bands, and Guar is just a universal name. Even if you listen to Lady Gaga, that I figured that like or not even just Richmond, but Virginia in general had kind of like maybe there was something in the water or in the air down there. That
I definitely think there is that. But as far as Virginia Beach itself, like the area that Noah grew up in, and like I grew up actually right smack in the middle between Virginia Beach and Richmond. So and we played shows in both, but like Virginia Beach specifically has always kind of been like
it's a touristy spot.
It's a really touristy spot, and it's kind of like, so if you're looking at like a map of the interstate system, like you've got 95 going up and down. I mean, that you're familiar with because that's how you get out of New York. Yeah. But Virginia Beach is like, man, it's a good like hour and a half off of that. So to get on and off of 95, if you're going on a route going up and down the East Coast, it's like, it's kind of a pain, man. And like, I think a lot of booking agents see that and they're like, oh, I don't know, like, because you're losing 3 hours to go play there, basically. Yeah. So going to Richmond or even up to like Northern Virginia, there used to be a club called Jack's, which was really kind of like our home club in a lot of ways. Like that's like if we were starting a headlining tour, that's where we would choose to start the tour. It'd be like we were going to start at Jack's because it would be an awesome show. It could draw from Richmond, it could draw from Baltimore, etc. But it's not really there anymore.
So living that far from a major highway, the scene is kind of strangled.
Yeah.
So you desperately try and get out.
I've always wondered how Origin got their name out there, being in the dead middle of Kansas.
Okay.
That is an amazing feat, actually.
Yeah.
And so before we were rolling, the final question is we were going to do a gear rundown because...
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so let's go into your weapons of choice.
Noah, like, you love this shit. Go for it, dude.
All right, so I'm using a Furman power conditioner. They're great people. And then Line 6 G90. And I love the Class D stuff. I'm using a Crown XLS 1000. That's 1100 watts at 4 ohms. You can't beat that. Yeah. Into an Eden cab, the XLT 410. It handles 700 at 4 ohms. It's perfect. And then so right now I'm switching between a Mesa M2000 bassist from like the mid 90s. That was a great unit. And then switching between that and an 11 rack and the Crown power amp.
Wow. Did you like use this gear to kind of adjust to the sound of Arsis when you joined, or is it just something that you've always used?
No. I've always used preamps and power amps, and the Mesa is kind of a new thing. I'm hesitant to take it out. But on the record, I used an 11 rack. They're cheap, good. They've produced great tone for production at home. But I've always had a bunch of preamps. I've burned through a bunch of Sans amps. I love those things. And then I even have an ADA MB1. It's like the first multi-effects unit for bass. It was a little lacking in the low end. It was like it cuts off at like 50 hertz, so I'm not really reproducing the fundamental because we play in D standard. D standard drop C, so that's 50 hertz is like maybe like an F or a F sharp, something like that.
Yeah, compared to most of the extreme metal bands, you're probably tuned too high for them.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We are.
Yeah, yeah. Not like Vector or anything, but yeah.
And how about for you?
For me, so on this run, and I've been using this same kind of setup for the past couple of years now, even with Necromancy in the Stone, I have a Crate Stealth head, which is the first ever tube head that Crate manufactured. So it actually predates the Blue Voodoo head. It was designed by Lee Jackson, who was quite the guy for modding out Marshalls in the 80s for like Steve Vai and Yngwie and shit like that. So Crate hired him to design a head, so did Ampeg, and he did a handful of other heads for different companies, and even had his own company, but this is one of his heads. It's awesome. It's kind of like a hot rodded like JCM 800. So I've got that running into a EVH 2x12. I've kind of downsized. I've gone away from like the 4x12s, and I kind of love it, to be honest with you. It's more than enough like for the stage, and it's just a lot easier to maneuver. And thank you, Mike Tempesta, for hooking that up. Swell, dude. So, and then as far as a guitar, I've been using a Charvel Mexican Warren DeMartini, and that guitar is really, really rad. We actually tracked all of my rhythm parts for the new record with that guitar as well. It kind of beat out everything else that we had in the room. I'm just using like a tube screamer as like to tighten up the tone a little bit, and just a Boss TU2 or whatever the hell they are. Yeah, and that's it. And then I've also got a Fender Heartfield Talon that I've been playing, which is just a weird random old guitar. So yeah,
We all got one of those.
yeah.
But being that you also sing and play guitar, do you like have your guitar kind of like adjust? I know that some guitarists like to use like a Flying V model because it's lighter and it helps with their vocals. Do you kind of have your guitar adjusted to that in a way?
No, I haven't ever put that much thought into it really. Yeah, I like super strats. So Strat style guitar, Floyd Rose, some kind of like hot rodded pickups. I'm really kind of a guitar slut. I'll just really play whatever you put in my hands, and it'll sound like me. So I don't know. I guess it's good.
For basses, I've been using ESP and LTD basses.
ESP, you can't
I
go wrong with.
love it. I've always been a fan, and for them to hook me up with some fantastic gear, that's just unimaginably awesome. I've been playing the same like vintage 4 PJ special for like the last like 8 years. I love it. And changed out knobs, that sort of thing. But they recently hooked me up with one of their new Horizons, the LTD Horizon 5-string. It's wonderful. It's got a sick passive active switch. It saves my life. It gives me a lot of variable tones, varied tones, and Nordstrom pickups, a gorgeous burl top. Yeah.
ESP also has the coolest booth at NAMM. I don't know if you've ever been. But
Not in some time.
Oh my god, they always have the coolest booth. So, but yeah, that's really cool. Like, it's cool that you guys work with a variety, because some guitarists or bassists are like so picky with it. But to me, a great musician can make any piece of gear sound great in the end, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, I just I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you absolutely. It really, you can put a good player on a Squier with like stock pickups, and they probably can make it sound the way it should. So yeah.
Exactly. So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
Visitant, you said, is coming out November 2nd.
That is correct.
Yep. Is there just any other tours or anything else with Arsis that we could be expecting for the Visitant record cycle?
I think we could expect some good things. We just signed with a new European booking agency called Mad Tour Booking, so I think Europe can expect to see Arsis in hopefully soon, very immediate future. And yeah, I'd like to give the States another go with a different type of package and see what we can do.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Everybody, we are here with Arsis. Be sure to pick up Visitant out on Nuclear Blast. Catch them on everything they got going on. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.